Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is our elementary scheduling. So I did send out a quick email this morning. If you already had the elementary procedural checklist printed, it's fine. They just never updated it in the Learning Center. So I asked about it and they sent me the new one. The only update there is the school year we're working in is 25-26. So just double check. And when we're looking at the checklist, everything that says 24-25 in the old checklist, it should be 25-26. So if you're not sure which one you are looking at, if you look at the bottom of the procedural checklist, if it says has the revised date of 2/14/2024, that just has last year's dates in it. If you printed out from this morning after I emailed it to you, the new revised date would be the February 13th, 2025. Again, nothing else in there changed except for the dates. So just make sure that when we are working, you are working in your correct building, your elementary building, and we are working in 25-26. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I am Shelly Baltic. This is my first time going through the elementary scheduling with you. I've always been in the room, and some of you I've worked with because I work with the report cards. So it is kind of fitting that I go through the actual scheduling too with you. So we're going to look at a few of these things going through. Some of these you might not be ready to do right now, especially tasks 20 and on. You might not be ready for that quite yet. That might be something that you do in August when you get back to school. So just depending on how far along you are in scheduling and so forth. So I know there's a lot of differences this year in scheduling. I have multiple buildings that are either reconfiguring their grade levels, or they're moving into a new building or something like that. So things are changing. So I'm going to go through this slow and so forth to make sure everybody has everything. If you have questions in the Zoom world, feel free to type them in the chat, or since this is a small group, feel free to unmute. So on page 3, there's the big stop button. Don't panic with that one. These things have already been done. So when we're looking at these, it says before the elementary scheduling can be started, school year initialization has to be done. We also call that SYI. Some of you got to join me for that fun-filled day that takes 3 hours to get everything ready for the new school year. So that's already completed. The EMIS people will work on the EMIS exceptions in the calendar, which is typically done with SYI as well. And then step number 3, I do want to point this out. This is talked about during the SYI process, but it can be done multiple times throughout the rest of the school year, including summer. It's the student promotion and bulk enrollment. So it should have automatically been done one time for your building. So I'm not sure exactly who did the SYI for your building, but it should have been done once. So what this does is it promotes the students. So a 3rd grader going to 4th grade for the 25-26 school year. And then in 25-26, we have to enroll them. So they are in the future school year at that new grade level. If you've had students that have enrolled into your district since SYI was completed at the end of January, beginning of February, you might want to go through that process again at some point in time. So that's kind of an ongoing thing that you will do periodically from now till the end of school. Okay. There is a note at the bottom that says that you'll need your class lists ready. This is at step number 20 or task number 20. I'll talk about it then, but even if you don't know who's going to be in whose homerooms and so forth, you can always do that later. You'll have the checklist to go with. So as we are getting ready, again, we're working in the 25-26 school year. So things that are school year specific are things like our courses, our course sections, our course groups. Not only are course sections school year specific, but they are also school building specific. So like I said, I know I have a new school building coming into the 25-26. We have a district that is reconfiguring. So sections do not transfer from building to building. However, they do copy up from school year to school year with school year initialization. So just be aware of that. If you're looking for something, but it's part of a different building, that's why it does not transfer. Next page, on page 4. These are also done during SYI. You should have a default schedule result set. And again, if you still have the revised version for 2024, it says at the building level at 24-25, everything is 25-26 that we're working in. So you can just cross those out and update them. If you look at my old sheet, I have like 3 different colors of writing on there for every school year, because instead of rewriting all my notes, I just had different ones. So just make sure that you are in the 25-26. So page 4 is done. You will notice, because our schedule has not been finalized, there are areas where we will have to pick the default schedule and the default schedule set, the result set, just because that schedule is not finalized yet, and we're working in the future school year. So on page 5, just some reminders. So when we're working with, and I know it says K-12, most of us are, well, we're up to 6. You guys have 5. And most of us online are up to 5. But when we're working with this, we want to make sure that our students are scheduled into separate classes. Don't allow the teachers to start adjusting their rosters in gradebook, because it causes issues with the report cards. So I know sometimes in the past, they just schedule a reading class for 3rd grade, and then the teachers go in and hide the kids that they don't need and so forth. I had one district that they would switch every 9 weeks, and instead of scheduling it that way, the teachers were just hiding and unhiding. And then they would go to print the report cards and there would be blank spots because they already hit them, so that the grades weren't coming over and so forth. So it's very important that each of your homeroom teachers has a homeroom, and those courses are scheduled to them. So if you're self-contained, they would have each of the subject areas. If they rotate and they're subject specific, each of those subject areas should have its own course section. Everything that you had last year should have copied up during SYI, so you just might need to make a few adjustments. Maybe whoever's teaching it, maybe you have a big 3rd grade class, they're moving to 4th grade, so you might have to add another section to 4th grade. So that happens. If you are adding a new course, and I will be adding this so you guys can see, the biggest one is adding a computer or technology class to our elementaries. That seems to be popular over the last couple years. If you are adding a new class, make sure you're putting in a ticket so that I know to attach that course to the report card. Instead of at 9 weeks, you're like, we're printing report cards and the technology class is not showing on that report card because I never added it. So if I don't know that there's a new course that's been added, I don't know to add it to the report card. Elementary report cards are different than our middle school, high school, where it goes by the student schedule, where our elementary go by the courses. Okay. And next reminder is special ed. So remember, you can have special ed classes. This might be taught by your intervention specialist, somebody that is certified. Special ed student population has to be over 50% of special ed students in order to classify it for special ed. We do suggest that if it is a special ed class, that you're creating a separate course code. So a lot of you do it, maybe you have like fourth grade reading S. That's for your special ed, or fourth grade reading asterisk. I have one that will do like reading 4 for gen ed and then reading -4 for special ed. It's easier to have those separate courses, especially if we need to attach a special ed course to a special ed report card. There are districts that use different report cards for their special ed students if they're using extended standards. Instead of just doing the EMIS override for that one, sometimes it gets lost in the mix. Same with your gifted students. Same thing, you would want to schedule a separate course for those as well. Page 6 really doesn't affect us. The ESC, our IB school closed, so that would affect those, but we don't have to worry about that anymore. And then if our preschool students, if the ESC is teaching them, they're taking care of it. If it's the home district, they're taking care of their preschool students. So we're going to start on task 1. So some of this is just verifying information, just making sure everything was set properly. So task 1 is looking at our homeroom terms to make sure that they were set. Again, these should have been set during SYI, but we are just going to double check. So again, I am in my elementary building. I am in the 25-26 school year. So in my go-to, I like using the go-to. You can always go the long route, but in my go-to, I am going to type in homeroom terms. Except I can't spell it right. So once I go to my homeroom terms, typically our elementary only use full year homerooms. So that means that your students are in the same homeroom from the first day of school to the last day of school. Some of our middle school, high school, they use semesters. First semester, they might be with Mrs. Smith, and second semester, they might be with Mr. Jones. Okay. All we are doing here when we're verifying our homeroom terms is under the area where it says schedule terms that you see dates in there. That is making sure that those dates have been verified. So those are each of the 9 weeks when the 9 weeks begin. So it's important to make sure those are in there. So just a little bit of extra information. Our start date of school, our end date of school is listed, and then how many days have been planned for the school year. This, if you need to edit or you do not see dates in there, you can click on the pencil. That will bring up so you can check your schedule terms. But like I said, most of you, it should be fine because we did this during SYI. The other thing you can do from the screen, you might see this little person. If you know for sure that none of your homerooms are going to be the same last year. So, a kid moving from 3rd grade is going to have a different homeroom teacher than this year. You didn't want them copied up. This little guy here, so the silhouette with the X, this is just saying, hey, I'm going to remove all students from all homerooms. So then nothing was copied over. It clears everything out. So there is something, and I'm going to go to the Learning Center real quick to show you guys something. It is called Student Data Tasks. Maybe, there we go. And this is something that happens during SYI when you are doing your enrollment. So when you're doing your enrollment, these options are at the top of the screen. And if you weren't the person that was doing SYI, that person might not know if you were reusing homerooms and stuff. But your student data tasks also allow you to clear homeroom. So this might have been done during SYI. I don't know. So if you can go to the student data task and clear homerooms and run that task, or you can click on this little guy and it will clear everything out. How do you know if a student has a homeroom or not? I have an example. So you can always just type in the asterisk in the student search, but I'm going to pick my 4th grade because I know some of those have homerooms. You will see here next to homeroom, you will see that they would have something listed, but a majority of mine don't have anything listed. So a homeroom is not assigned to them. So like I said, if you put in an asterisk here, it would show everybody and you can take a quick glance to see if those were cleared out or not. Task 2. So task 2 is verifying the rooms and locations. So because there are so many things with our home rooms, instead of typing in rooms in our go-to, I'm going to do locations. And that will bring up my room and location. Please note, and it has the FYI there. It probably should have something in bright red or something. Rooms and locations are not school year specific. So if I start modifying this, it will be modifying it in the current school year. So if I wanted to change the name of this one, I'm like, I don't know why I have that like that. If I modify it, it modifies it on the student schedule now. If I'm changing room capacity, it is changing the room capacity now. Now, for our districts that are adding rooms, maybe because they're moving to the new building or they're, bringing kids in from another building, you can always add locations. So that's not a problem. Just remember, if you're changing, it is changing the current school year. So with that being said, a tip is to always use the room and not the teacher name. So some of you might have, room 1 belongs to Baltic. Well, now maybe Baltic is moving from 1st grade to 2nd grade. So now I have to change it. So now she's going to be teaching in room 127. Well, so then I would have to modify both of those rooms. And if I don't want it to affect this year, I have to wait to summer to do that. If I just leave it the room numbers, typically there's no modifying. You might add because maybe you're adding, maybe there was a conference room, now it's going to be a classroom for our resource kiddos. So something like that. But if you're using the room number, you typically don't have to modify. Capacity is obviously the how full you can fill the room. Schedulable does not work, so it doesn't matter. But the important one is your homeroom. If you want this room number to be associated with a homeroom, this has to be checked. If I click on my little edit pencil, is homeroom is right here, and I can check it and save it. Okay. So again, if you want that room number to be in the drop down when you're creating your home rooms, you want it to say is homeroom. And then of course is active. If you have an inactive room, it would show with a little 0, a yellow 0, a yellow circle, because that can't be reused. Okay, so that code cannot be reused. So just double check that if you're having a hard time trying to create a new location, it might already be used and is inactive. Then if I'm looking, there are some areas, for example, maybe the art room or the auditorium is never going to be used for a homeroom. Then I would not check those because that would not be included in my homeroom drop-down list. So sometimes these do need to be modified because maybe next year, maybe the gym teacher is going to be doing a homeroom. And they're going to start in the gymnasium. So you might need to check that, so it could be included. Okay. So again, just make sure that you know anything that you're modifying between the code and the name or the capacity is changing in the future school year as well as the current school year. Task 3, verifying your homerooms to ensure that they have the correct teacher. So in my go-to, I am going to type in homerooms. So I'm going to go to my homeroom maintenance. And these are all of my homerooms that I have. So I have who the teacher is, the homeroom term, which again, most of the elementaries are just full-time, and then the room number. And then if there is a grade level associated with it. And then you can see here on the homeroom terms or on the homeroom maintenance, the capacity and how many are remaining. So if I'm looking here, I know that one student has been assigned to this homeroom because my remaining is 24. So for you, if you're starting off and you wanted everything cleared out, this is a great place to check to see the capacity and the remaining for you guys should be exactly the same because you haven't assigned anybody yet. Now, maybe there's changes. Maybe, you know, you have a 3rd grade teacher going to 4th grade because that's a big class and that teacher's just going to keep moving up with them. Maybe you have a teacher retire, you have a new teacher coming in and taking that place. So instead of just adding a new homeroom, you can modify an existing one. So for example, Pataki is retiring. They are no longer going to be teaching, but we already hired the new teacher, so we know who's coming in. So if I click on the little edit pencil, so instead of deleting Pataki, I'm just going to edit this one to the new teacher. So I'm going to click on the pencil. I can rename it however I need. And remember, your course codes have to be unique. They cannot be the same as another one. And the new teacher coming in is Morris. Room location is still going to be the same, but my teacher is going to change. Okay. And then this is for my 4th grade class. So it's going to have, you know, the grade level specific. So then I'm going to hit save. And you can see now, instead of saying Pataki, it now says Morris. So I have 3 4th grade homerooms. If I did need to add another homeroom, I could click add, and then I would fill out accordingly, selecting the course term, making sure the class code or the homeroom code is unique and the name is unique, and then picking the location. Okay, and that does happen because we do get those spurts of kids where one grade level is bigger than the other, and you know, you're adding course sections or homerooms for that grade level. Okay, any questions with just verifying that information? And you'll see here later how Morris, just because we edited it, because of that, it's already going to be in places that Pataki already was. So we're not creating everything from scratch. Okay. Task 4 is looking at our courses. So in our go-to, we are going to look at courses. So when we're looking at courses, I'm just going to hit my search. So this is showing me all of my courses. Okay, so it's showing my course code, my names, EMIS subject code, which is important. We'll talk about that in a minute, and then that they're active. Okay, If I have any inactive, I don't think I do though. They would show with that yellow circle. Okay. This is kind of hard to go through because, you know, you can sort the column headings, you know, it's sorted by code right now. But instead of trying to go through here, oh, do I have an administration class for each of my grade levels? Oh, wait, you know what? We're getting a technology class. Do I have them for each of my grade levels? There are some reports that you can run to double check everything instead of trying to scroll through the screen to see if everything is here. So in my go-to, I'm going to type in the CRSE. So this is going to show me all of my courses. So it's called course curriculum. I just say it's short for course. So you can bring some stuff over if you want on the side, but I want to see if I have stuff scheduled as a lunch. I do want to see if I have anything scheduled as a study hall class. So I'm just going to leave that all over to the left. I want to see all my grade levels because I'm working with all of the grade levels, maybe K through 5 or you know, in my building, it might be 3, 4, 5, whatever it might be. Department area study, not going to worry about. We don't have difficulty levels, but here is the important area. And this can be used for a lot of things, not just for scheduling. It's just looking at your courses and the different things that were selected when the courses were created. So for example, I have some things in here. This was set for my high school. So we were looking at scheduling priority. Well, at the elementary level, we don't have scheduling priority because we're not scheduling an English over Art 3, you know, but at the high school level, we're doing things like that. So at this point, I don't really need that. So I'm going to move that to the side. The demand count is how many have requested it. At the elementary, we're not having our students request classes. They're not filling out a schedule sheet of classes that they want, electives they want. They're being told what they're going to. So I don't need my demand count either. But other things that you might want to look at is, oh, the student population. I want to see who's in that class, how many. So that might be important for me. By default, when you create a new course, it automatically checks is high school credits. So you might not realize that it's checked now, but on down the line when they're starting to do GPAs and things, maybe at the middle school or high school level, if it's marked as high school credit in the elementary, it will calculate into that GPA. So we want to make sure that our classes are not marked as high school credit. You know, you can mark it is active, any of these. So print on the report card, report to EMIS is another good one because we don't want classes like lunch. We don't want classes like our admins, our work habits or social skills, whatever you call it at your district. We don't want those to be reported to EMIS. So that's a good one to have as well. You can have up to 10 different fields to display. If you choose 11, it's only going to display the first 10. Okay. So I just have a few of those things so you guys can see, but you can pick, and it's kind of hard to go through because it is kind of a long list. But you can modify it as you need. A lot of these are for high school scheduling or middle school, high school scheduling. So you would not need those. And then it's just going to sort by my course codes. So once I hit submit, my management screen is going to come up and it's ready. So I'm going to click on my report and it is the teeniest, tiniest report ever. But you can see how it has room for up to 10 of those fields. So by default, it's automatically going to put the course code. Okay, remember that has to be unique. The course name is what is going to go over to gradebook. So that's what grade book is going to, your teachers are going to see. What grade levels are associated with that. So this is good for some of your math classes. I know even at the elementary level, you might have a third grade student taking a fourth grade math. So you will want to schedule it or have that course set up for third and fourth grade students. Things that I looked at was the course type code. So if you're looking through here, I can see that most of mine are set up for classes. My study halls, if you do have a study hall in your upper elementary grades, it does need to be classified as a Z if you are going to run the study hall wizard. And then our lunches should be marked as an L. The next is my student population. So this is where it's telling me if it's a regular ed class, if it is a gen ed class, again, being over 50% of, not gen ed, sorry, gifted ed, 50% or higher has to be of the gifted population and the teacher has to be certified. And then if it's a special ed class. And you can see here a lot of times with our special ed classes. So here is my English class. So it's 3S English. Okay, so then I know that that is my special ed class because S is in there. Where this one is a gifted class and it's 3G English or 3G math. Okay. So again, it's a good way to kind of go through. You can sort different ways if you wanted to sort by student population, things like that. You can sort different ways, but you can go through and look at everything. This one was is high school credit. So if I look, I'm like, well, why is this one set for high school credit? It shouldn't be. Okay, because again, remember when you're creating by default, that is high school credit is automatically checked. And then my report to EMIS, a lot of these are set to yes, because we want our English, our math, our social studies. We want all those to report to EMIS, but classes like our study halls and our lunches, we do not want to report to EMIS. Okay. So again, you can have up to 10 fields for that CRSE report. I do want to show you another one. This one's not in the documentation, but this one's helpful as well. It is just a very big report. So it is in the Analytic Hub. So in the Analytic Hub, underneath scheduling, there is one called course details. This one, you don't get to pick the fields. It does it for you. And it's all of the fields. So all of those that you saw in that box that you could pick the 10, it has everything going across. So this one takes a minute because it's the Analytic Hub. We know that takes a while. So if I want to look at my 25-26 school year, and for my elementary, I'm going to run this. So then you can see here, same thing. It's going to default to having the course code, the course name. Okay, it will also show abbreviation doesn't really show up anywhere except for here and on the screen. So it's kind of useless to put things in there unless you want a specific note. The short name shows up in course history, which we're not really dealing with course history at this age level. But you can see it has everything. Our hours of instruction, our scheduling priority is high school credit. If it's active, report to EMIS. So all of those are on here. Okay, and you can export this to Excel if you want to start filtering things out. Okay, but it's just a very wide report, but it has everything. Okay. So looking at our courses, Okay, so that was kind of getting everything set up because you might want to go through. You might be like, oh, we haven't taught this class in years. So if it is still active, if it is an active course, it will continue to copy up during SYI. If it's something that you haven't taught or you're not using, make it inactive. Okay, and we're going to go through each of the tabs of creating a course so you can see how to make it inactive. But once it's inactive, then it does not carry over during SYI. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my go-to and I'm going to go back to my courses. You can pull up one if you want that you already have created. So you can just hit the search. If you know a specific math, you can start typing it in and it will populate all of your math classes. If you do know that you are adding a new course, you can click on add and that will populate the box. So I'm going to add and go through adding because I'll use this course later on. But like I said, you probably have something already created that you can just follow along. So click on one and then click on the edit pencil so you can see all of the screens. So I'm going to add a new course. Okay, in this, we are now on task 5, looking at our general tab. So if I'm looking at this, so our course code, it can be up to 15 characters. I suggest keeping it short and sweet. You will see this, you will type this in sometimes when you're finding courses. Also, when the teachers are looking at their class lists, they will see the course code. So typically it's a few characters. Okay, so in my case, I'm going to call mine 4 Tech. I think that's what I was calling it. So a lot of times your abbreviation and your short name are very similar to your course code. So I'm just going to keep them all the same. So they're all 4 Tech. And then the long name. So this name that is required, this is what goes over to gradebook. Okay, so this is what the teachers are going to see. Now, with that being said, whatever it says here, the teachers do have the option to create class aliases so they can change what they see in their grade book. So a lot of times our upper grade levels that are maybe subject specific. So I'm only teaching math and I have 4 different sections of math. I have Mrs. Smith's homeroom. I have Mr. Jones's homeroom. I have Mrs. Baltic's homeroom and Mrs. Rosecrans' homeroom. So a lot of times the teachers rename it for themselves so they know whose homeroom that they're seeing at that point in time, but everything is going to be called Math 4. Okay. So again, this is what goes over into the teacher's grade book. So I'm going to call this Technology 4. Description, again, this doesn't go anywhere, so you don't really need to worry about that. So this next one, this hours of instruction, this one's very important. And if you are new to scheduling, if you're not sure about this, talk with your EMIS coordinator, except for Norwayne right now, because Fran is gone until April 1st, but she can help you with that as well as soon as she comes back. But your hours of instruction are the physical hours that that student is taking that class. One, it can't be lower than 18. So 18 is the minimum that it could be. But when hours of instruction, what this is the number of minutes per day. So if it's a math class, you know, if they're in it for 45 minutes, 5 days a week, you're going to, you know, it's 45 minutes. You're going to multiply that by the days that they're in session. Where our specials might be a little bit different. Our specials, they're typically not going 5 days a week for 45 minutes at a time. So they might be going once a week for 45 minutes or whatever it might be. So it's the number of minutes per day times the days in session divided by 60, which is our 60 minutes to come up with our hours. So in this case, for our specials class, their only hours of instruction are 240. Typically, they are around 120 to 150 if it is a full class. Okay. Our scheduling priority, we don't really care about that at the elementary level because the students are not requesting courses. This would be a scheduling priority would be at the high school level that an English 12 class would have a high priority over a some type of an elective. Okay, so an elective is usually a lower scheduling priority and a core class is a higher. So then looking at a few of these, again, remember I'm creating a new class. Notice it automatically checked is high school credits. This is why I say look at that CRSE report to make sure none of your courses have is high school credit. So I want to make sure that that is unchecked for my technology class. The display on public module doesn't really matter for you guys. That would be if you're allowing the students to go online and request their own classes. This sometimes happens at the middle school, high school level, but not at the elementary. If it's checked, it doesn't hurt anything. Roll course to the next year. So that's so it goes year to year in SYI. Display on parent access. So this one is important, especially we have all those extra classes. So we might have an athletes for coaches. We might have a case management class. We might have just a lunch, the admin class, things like that, that parents don't need to see on parent access. However, I want to point this out because it's a two-step process. So if I just uncheck display on parent access here, it just does not show on the schedule in parent access. That's the only place. So I'm going to leave this checked and I'm going to go into gradebook so you guys can see how this works. So if I go into gradebook, please don't sign me out, on my principals tab, so on my principals tab, there is a section that says display, view student progress and attendance via parent access. So if I look for my students and I'm going to view this information. So if I look at her schedule, so we're looking at Willow, I know they're not scheduled to much, but you can see their planner has lunch, math, reading. But if I go to their schedule, it's showing exactly what they're scheduled in: reading, math, lunch. So what this checkbox does, if I uncheck it, and hold on one second, I got to get to the right course. I didn't save that, did I? Hold on, save. Okay. I almost didn't save it. Okay, so let's get to our lunch. And she was in lunch, section 5. So if I'm looking at this and I uncheck and I hit save, I am going to refresh my screen. I just did this morning, but I changed my lunches. Let's see. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Ignore what I'm doing. Parent access only shows the current school year. So I had to do this in the current school year. That was my mistake. So if I uncheck this and I hit save, now I'm going to refresh my screen. And you can see lunch disappeared. But because that screen in student information only works with the schedule. If I go to my planner, notice lunch is still there. If I go anyplace else, I'm still going to see lunch. Okay. So if I definitely don't want it to be displayed in parent access, in gradebook, and I know some of you have the access to do this, some of you might not, but in gradebook, I know Vince does because he's the PB point person. But in my courses, so if I type in my course name of lunch, what is it? LUN. Let's do it this way. So here's my lunch. If I click on the little arrow next to it, I want to say exclude from parent access. Okay, so I'm excluding this from parent access. So if I hit update, now when I look at my student here, no matter what screen I'm on, grades, the planner, the schedule. Oh, look, why is it back on schedule? Because this one. So they kind of, if you don't want it at all, you have to do it in both places, if that makes sense. Because you don't really under grades, you don't want parents to see admin, you don't want parents to see case management or athletes for coaches, and they're like, what is that for? So you turn it off here, which is going to turn it off on the schedule screen. And then if you turn it off under courses, so if you say exclude, then that's going to turn it off on your grades, your planner, your home screen, all of those screens. Okay, so it's kind of a two-step process. It does not explain that in there, but I want to point that out because I know the gradebook side. Yes.
When you click that attendance, parents can see, what does that show? What parents see when you click attendance?
This one?
Yeah.
Daily attendance. At the elementary, you guys typically don't do
Oh,
period attendance, but so it'll show their homeroom attendance.
Oh, just that. Okay.
Yes. Yep. Now at the middle school, high school, when they're taking period attendance, it will show what that is. Good question. Any other questions with that? Did it not save my tech course? I might not have because I was closing out of it before I hit save. Sorry, I'm going to have to start that over. Okay. That was my fault. And so again, I'm making sure is high school credit is unchecked. That is active. So if it's not active, if I uncheck that, it doesn't really delete. It's just showing as unactive, and it cannot be reused. So if it's something that you're bringing back, maybe you the students didn't have health for a couple years, but you're bringing it back. You know, you can uncheck or recheck the is active and it'll bring back. Is in update history. This is important if your district is using permanent record labels, you're actually printing them, or if you want to go the route of permanent record labels. This has to be checked in order for those to show up there. And then the rest of them would not be needed for elementary. I'm going to go to my, oh, I forgot my hours of instruction. So the next one on my marks tab, there really much isn't to do here except, so sorry, this is task number 6. So we're not doing levels of difficulty because we're not, giving them a, adjusted grading scale, maybe for CCP or whatever. They're not going to take CCP classes. So basically this whole left column, we don't need to worry about. The only thing that you really need to worry about on the right-hand side is if you do want to use those permanent record labels, that this is checked. Everything else is checked by default, but at the elementary level, we typically do not do homerooms or GPAs and so forth. It does not hurt if it's checked. But this is the important one, that the permanent record label is checked if you want to print those out at the end of the school year. The miscellaneous, again, the miscellaneous, there's not much to do here except for two things. One is the course type. So if it is a class, it should be classified as a C. If it is a lunch, it should be an L. And if it is a study hall, it should be a Z. Why they picked Z, I don't know, but it's Z. So those are the three main ones that you guys will use. At this point, you're not using CCP, things like that. If you have a case management, you might classify it as case management. But these are our three main ones. So this is a class. And then the other required area is the grade level, what grade level it is. So this is for my 4th grade. Okay. So those are the two main things. This gender directive, you might use that. That would be if you have a phys ed class that you're only allowing boys and girls in. So this allows it to be specific, but typically that's not used. It's kind of, they're a mix and they're traveling around with their homerooms anyways. EMIS, this is the important one. Task number 8. This is the one that takes time. Okay, so but before I go there, a question in the chat was calculating the hours of instruction, and I can't go back right at the moment, but that's on your general tab. So calculating your hours of instruction is the number of minutes per day. So if they're in the class for 45 minutes, I know elementary, it's kind of tough because you might say they're doing math for 45 minutes and it might take them 52, but you're just kind of guesstimating 45 minutes of math times the days that they're in session. So if they're doing math every single day, so 45 times 5, and then dividing that by 60. And that will give you your hours of instruction. So again, specials might be a little bit different because they might only be going once a week for 40 minutes. So it'd be 1 time or 40 times 1 divided by 60. Okay, so our EMIS tab. Majority of your EMIS IRN and your description is going to be blank. You do not need this here if it is within your own district. Okay, so the only time you might have needed this, if it was an IB class, which our IB school closed, because the ESC was providing the instructor, or if it's a CCP class and the college is providing the instructor. So that would be the only time that's filled in. If you have your own buildings IRN in there, that's okay. But if you're creating new, courses, it does not have to be filled in. Correct, Ashlyn, the days per week. Yes. Now I'm second guessing myself. Hold on, let me double check that. She's asking if it's the days per week or the days total for the year. Be the general tab. The number of minutes times the number of days divided by 60. I was wrong, and not the days per week. You are correct. I don't know who I'm talking to at Ashland, so I'm just calling you Ashland. The number of minutes times the number of days in session. So if it is 5 days a week for 36 weeks, whatever that is divided by 60, that would give you your total hours of instruction. So if it was once a week for a phys ed class, number of hours, if it's 40 minutes once a week, so that would be 36 divided by 60. Sorry about that. I'm glad you caught that. Okay. So our EMIS tab, our staff provider is going to be the STARS. And so we don't need a staff provider IRN because it's a teacher. The EMIS people will go through and make sure that, you know, they're certified to teach. So we can't have a teacher that is certified 4 and up and they're teaching a 2nd grade class. So that's something that the EMIS person has reports on and so forth. The course level, this is typically not used at the elementary level. So this would be like our Spanish classes or algebra classes where we have multiple levels. We have, you know, algebra 1, algebra 2, or Spanish 1, 2, 3, 4. So that one's typically just the STAR. Our subject code. So subject code is very important. Okay, so our subject code, this is where it is going to populate your pre-ID labels for your state assessments, and I believe the KRAs as well. Okay, so it is important that you are picking the correct subject code. So I'm not going to exit out of here right at the moment, but on the home screen of student information, there is a little handout, and we'll talk about that in a second. It has the required codes needed for each of the grade levels for that state assessment. So when you're doing your pre-ID labels for ELA, you want to make sure that you have the correct 7th and 8th ELA. Yes, sir.
So it's already top, it's already brought over with SYI.
Yes, if it was a course that you already had, yes, it will come.
It's already, okay, so
Yep.
then you just-
Yep,
Gotcha.
correct.
Okay.
So in this case, mine is a new course, so it did not come over. And I might have passed it already. Nope, there it is. No, I want technology literacy here. So if you look here, so I'm doing a technology class, computer class. So if I am looking a lot of times at the elementary, it is by grade bands. So this is the biggest mistake. So I want to make sure this is a 4th grade class. I want to make sure that I'm picking the proper grade band so it is marked correctly. Now, this is a specials class, so it doesn't affect it as much as our math, English, and our tested areas. But I do want to make sure that I am picking the correct grade band. Okay. Subject area. So we are not, this is not for high school credits, so it is not applicable. It is always going to be taught in English. The core subject area does not have to be completed. It's only required when it is for high school credit. If there is an end of course, that would be if there is a core subject area, and then these are our end of course exams. Okay, so for elementary, ours is based on the subject code. That's going to produce our pre-ID labels. where for our high school, it would be our end of course. It is not a CTE. Our curriculum, typically for our elementary, most of them are OT. It's curriculum not specifically covered by another option. So we don't have CCP classes, we don't have advanced placement or IB classes, things like that. So typically, almost all of ours are OT, which I don't know what the OT stands for. I'm just telling you it's OT. Our delivery method, I think most of us now are face-to-face. Okay, so there's a few schools that still have their virtual academies. So that might be online versus face-to-face, but our classes are face-to-face. So our educational option is going to be no, it's not an option. Our student population. Okay, so again, this is the important thing for EMIS reporting. This is why it's on the EMIS tab. So a majority of our courses are regular. Okay, so this is just regular general ed student. This can still be an inclusion class. So you have an inclusion class, it's not considered a special ed class. It's just a general class with a mix of students. Okay. So our other options are our gifted. So again, this is where it has to be over 50% of the population of the class has to be gifted. So if I have a class of 20, 10 students are gifted, I cannot consider that a gifted class because it's not over 50%. Okay, it's over that 50% mark. So once I hit that 11 mark, I can count it as gifted, but then the instructor has to be certified gifted or your EMIS coordinator is going to come after you. Okay. Same with your special ed, same exact situation. Okay. And again, a lot of times this is where a different course is created for those special ed classes if we need to attach them to different report cards. Okay, so I'm going to leave mine at general ed. It is not a credit flex class. And then the report to EMIS. Just make notes for yourself that if you have your classes, and again, all of those should have copied up, but if you're creating something unique, you need for your school, whatever it might be, and it's not something that's going to be graded, it should not be reported to EMIS. So our admin class where we do our attendance and our comments, that doesn't need to be reported to EMIS. Whatever your district calls, like your learning skills, your work habits, things like that, that doesn't need to be reported to EMIS. But any of our core classes, our specials, those do need to be reported to EMIS. Okay. And then the next tab, which is task 9, but there's really nothing to do there. You guys don't have pre and co-requisites. So you're not saying, oh, you have to take language arts in grade 3 before grade 4. It just doesn't work that way. So this is more for, you have to take Spanish 1 before Spanish 2 or algebra 1 before algebra 2. So now with that being said, I am going to hit save. So my course should have populated. Here is my technology 4 with my course code. So I'm going to back out of courses here for a second, and I'm going to go to my student information homepage. I did try to organize these. I'm still kind of working on it a little bit, but under scheduling, you have one called elementary courses pre-ID information. This is task 8 that I was talking about, that it is very important that that EMIS subject code is specific for those pre-ID labels for your state testing. Okay, so that's this section. Okay, so with the next gen test, you want to make sure that you are picking the correct subject code. Okay, so again, you want to make sure that if it is a fourth grade English class, that you're 050-154. Because if I pick 050-152, that's not a fourth grade English. Okay, so it's very important that you're picking these correct ones. Okay, and a majority of them are grade band specific. Okay, so that is there for your reference. I kind of printed it out and put it right with it because task number 9 basically for us is useless. So that's kind of in place of task number 9. It is called Elementary Courses Pre-ID Info. Okay. So we're going from courses and moving on to course sections. So you can type in course sections in the go-to, but if you go back one level in the breadcrumb trail to course maintenance, you can just switch to course sections. So remember I said you should have a default schedule and a default result set. This is where we have to pick it our first time as we're working today, or if we get signed out and signed back in, you'll have to pick it again. It's because our schedule is not finalized. So my first time through, my working schedule is my default schedule. My result set is my 25-26 result set. If you are not the person that did SYI, I don't know exactly what yours is called because those are free form and they can name them what they need to. So it might be just a little bit different than mine. So I'm going to reload my screen. Now you can kind of see it looks very similar to the courses screen. So a couple things. I love all their little icons and stuff in the documentation. But the little smiley face guy says, don't forget to make multiple sections of all your specials. So gym, art, music, in this case, technology, things like that. So each one needs to be have its own section. Okay, so this is because typically at the elementary level, we do course groups. And it only allows that course section to be in one course group. So if you just make one gym class and not each individual sections, then it's hard for using it in that course group. Okay, however, lunch is opposite. So lunch, it goes to all the kids. So lunch, we don't have to have multiple sections because we can just bulk assign lunch to a grade level. Okay, but like art, music, PE, those we want specific sections. Now, another tip, and we'll talk a little bit more about this as we're creating. Another tip is, you know, when you're working with your teachers, so you have a teacher, so in my case, it's going to be Mrs. Morris. I want to make sure that all of her sections are the same. So she's my section 41. So even for our art, music, and PE, I want to give her section 41. So when I'm looking at stuff, it makes it a little bit easier. And I could say, okay, Morris is 41, and then here's her PE. I'm going to give Jones section 41. So I know that that's Morris's homeroom. So again, you don't have to do it that way, but it's just a suggestion to kind of help you visually to know whose homeroom section 41 is. Yes.
My result says 24-25 result.
But you are in the 25-26?
Yeah.
Okay. We will get that changed.
Okay.
Let's make a note, and at the end, we'll get that,
Okay.
we'll get that updated. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, also remember that, course section numbers cannot be reused. It automatically defaults to try to go in sequential order, but it does not have to be in sequential order. And then even if you have a course section that you're not assigning to students, that will still go over to the teacher's grade book, even without students. So if it is not going to be used, so for example, I was talking about my third grade being a big class, they're moving up to fourth grade. Well, now in third grade, I have an extra section of everything. Instead of just leaving it there with Mrs. Morris's name on it, I want to inactivate that course section so then it doesn't go over to the teacher's grade book. Okay, so it's just kind of, it's helping on both ends. It's organizing your screen to see the ones that are actually being used, and it's helping the teacher in their grade book so they don't have a class with no students. Okay, so a few things as we're working on these. So you can create new courses, so a specific course, or if you, or specific course section, or if you have a teacher that you know is retiring, you can just update those with the new teacher. So for example, it was Pataki. So we know that Pataki is retiring. Okay, so Pataki teaches all of these classes. So instead of Pataki teaching these, now Morris is going to teach those. So instead of creating a whole new section, a section 41 for Morris, because I can't reuse that section number, I'm just going to update these. So if I click on my edit pencil, and we'll talk about each of these in more detail, but I'm just going to skip to the meeting times tab, and I'm going to switch from Pataki to Morris. And then I'm going to hit save. And then you'll notice my spelling is gone because Pataki's no longer teaching it. So then I'm going to do the same thing for this one. And I'm going to switch from Morris to Pataki, Pataki to Morris. And you'll see my list is getting smaller. Okay, so this works out well for somebody that's retiring. So typically during the school year, we don't really change that meeting times tab unless you have somebody that has retired mid-year. And it does happen, or maybe somebody's going on maternity leave and, you know, you hired a full-time sub, you know, that they're going to be taking over. So in that case, you would switch. But typically, you know, the same teacher is teaching everything all year long. I'm going to get these switched real quick. I was trying to talk and click as fast as I could, but and then the last one. So okay, so that is editing. So if you need to edit, but in task 10 talks about adding a new section. So for example, I just created that tech class. The kids are now going to have technology this year. So I've created that tech. So for tech, okay. So if I do a search for it, I don't have any course sections. Uh-oh, I lost my Post-it note. I hope I remember what teacher I'm picking. Oh, let's see, let's get teacher out of context. Okay, but so I have no core sections. I want to make sure that I am adding the core sections for my teachers. And like I said, I might, so it's a different teacher teaching this, but during a certain period of time is going to be Morris's homeroom. And I know that Morris always is section 41. So for Tech 4, I'm going to add a new section. Okay, so instead of it defaulting and using the default of 1, I'm going to say 41 because this is going to be for Morris's homeroom kiddos. So the course term, typically most of yours are all year. Okay, I don't, most of our elementaries don't, but if it is a specific 9-week class, it's only 9 weeks. Sometimes it's 5th and 6th grade. They do 9-week classes. Then you would choose what 9 weeks, but typically it's an all year. You know, they might be going once a week. It's active, it's going to roll over. My meeting times description, I don't have to worry about that, will auto fill. Okay. And then I'm going to go to my meeting times tab. So typically, so that was task 11 was the general tab. So task 12 is the meeting times tab. So this is how student information knows what to send to gradebook. So whatever is here, it's going to say, okay, oh, but I don't want Morris. I want Berman. So, and hopefully I didn't sit on it or something. If you guys see a Post-it note somewhere on me, because I did lose a Post-it note and it has Harold's name on it. So Harold's the teacher for this class, what location he is in. So, you know, maybe he's in the computer lab. And then your periods of the day at the elementary level don't necessarily always line up because we're not saying first period is from 8:45 to 9:30, second period's from 9:30 to, 10:15, whatever. So sometimes it doesn't line up. So a lot of times we're just picking first period. If it's an afternoon section, you might pick 9th period, but they don't typically line up. The only ones that are really important is lunch periods. So if you're assigning lunch periods, because for HB 410, we don't deduct that time for those students. So that would be the only one that's really important. Okay. So, and these are populated by the periods of the day that happens during SYI. So that's what you are seeing here. That is from that. But by saying that Harold is teaching this class, this is telling student information that I'm going to take this tech class and I'm going to send it to Berman in gradebook. So it populates from here. The next tab, and typically we are always basic. So what basic means is it's the same teacher, the same location, the same period of the day. Okay. And like I said, the period of the day doesn't really account for a lot in the elementary world. Okay. And it could be multiple periods. If you wanted to check 1 and 2, you could, but it's consistent for all 5 days. Once in a while, you might do an intermediate. This is on page 26. If you specifically have a rotation that every single Monday, the 4th grade students are going to be going to tech class, during a specific time. So you only want Mondays, then you would pick intermediates. Because if I keep it on basic, that means Monday through Friday, first period. Well, a lot of schools, they have 4 specials and there's 5 days in a week. So their specials kind of get changed around. So they just leave it as basic and they kind of do their own schedule for, it's a blue day, it's a green day, whatever it might be. So, but once in a while, those intermediates are used if it's a specific day of the week. Memberships, these will automatically populate. So this is task number 13. It's a short section. So once your course groups are created, these will automatically populate here. So there's really nothing for you to add here. You will see this later on once we have our course groups created. Moving on to task number 14. Again, this is not really used at the elementary level. That would be for attendance. So, and again, we're not necessarily using the periods of the day specifically, so we're just gonna move on to this. Task number 15 is the teacher history tab. This is what gets reported to EMIS. Okay, so this is important for EMIS reporting, where meetings times tab is important for our teachers. Okay, so the nice thing about the teacher history is you don't have to do anything with it now. Okay, so EMIS people do something called wipe and new. They do this at the beginning of the school year. And what it does is it looks at everything and says, okay, the meetings time tab, you know, it now says Morris, but the teacher history might have still said Pataki. So what the wipe and new does, it says, okay, well, whatever the meetings times tab is, I'm going to take that and put it in the teacher history. Okay, so again, this is at the beginning of the school year. Now, we have those cases where we have a teacher leaving because of retirement, maternity leave, whatever it might be. In that case, you would physically have to come here, put the end date. So Mrs. Smith is only teaching until October 31st, and then she's going on maternity leave. So you would put that her end date is October 31st, and then the new teacher, Mrs. Jones, is coming in on November 1st. So she'd be teaching through the 31st, and the new teacher starts the next day. Okay, or the next school day. Okay, so if it's a Friday, it'd be the Monday. Okay, that's the only time you really have to adjust anything on the teacher history. But right now, if you're creating anything new, if you're making adjustments because of retirements over the summer, the meetings time tab is the only one that you have to adjust. And then the EMIS override. And again, you can do this, but typically we tell you if you have special ed courses, create a separate course for those special ed instead of just doing an EMIS override for a specific section. Okay, because it's harder to remember, oh, wait, was 41 the special ed section, or wait, I made it 50, or what, you know, whereas if you have the 4S English, then you know the S means that that's your special ed class, or the 4G English, that was your gifted group. Okay, but you can do the EMIS override, but we do suggest creating those specific courses. Okay. So with that being said, we went through all our tabs. I'm going to save my course section. So now you can see I have one course section scheduled to Harold Berman. That first, it's saying first period, but it's section 41. So we'll use that in a few minutes when we look at course groups. I'm going to pause here for a second. Okay. Task 17, this is working with course groups and course group sections. Again, these should have copied over. So most of us have been using these, so they would be there. I'm going to keep using my technology example because like I said, this has been a big thing that's been added. So I'm going to back up one level in my breadcrumb trail to course maintenance. And within here, I now have course groups. So when you come here, this is, it's going to be blank. You're just going to hit search. This is going to show you all your course groups. This is typically used for our self-contained students. Okay, so where they're, you know, they're getting all the same classes. If you have a 4th and 5th grade class with, you know, where you're subject specific, you might not necessarily be using course groups. You'd be assigning them a little bit differently. Okay.
Pop up.
Did you hit search? You do have to hit search.
Oh,
Yes.
I hit reload screen.
Yeah, no, you have to hit search. I don't know why. Yeah, it's goofy. Okay. So again, the same thing that we did with our homeroom teacher, that we did with our course sections. So remember, Pataki retired. Okay, so Pataki's no longer going to be there. Morris is taking over. So instead of creating a whole new course group and reattaching all those course sections, I'm just going to modify the one that's already there. Okay, so if I click on my little pencil, okay, I'm going to call this 4M for Morris. And it is for Morris. And the short name is 4M. The capacity of your course group overrides the capacity of a course section. So just be aware of that. Okay. And then the rest of these, it doesn't really matter. These are mostly for if they're doing the online module. So you don't have to worry about these. Whatever is checked is checked. So if I click to my courses, it's going to show all the courses that were attached and then what it was called. Okay, so I'm just going to save that. And then you will see now it is now called. Did I? Hold on. Did that not work? Did I not save? Work. There it goes. Okay, so now I have my Morris. So if I look at this and I go to my course sections, so now it is set for Morris. Okay, so instead of having to change, and add all of those, now it's showing me, okay, all the section 41s, they're in here. Okay, because that's what Pataki used to teach. So I didn't have to recreate that whole new course group. Okay, so again, if you had course groups last year, those will have carried over. Okay. So task number 18, that is just making sure the course group is named correctly. We just looked at that by switching it from Pataki to Morris. And then task number 19 is making sure that our courses and our sections are set up properly. Okay. So I have my course group called Morris. These are all the different courses that are available or that I added to this course group. Okay. So again, these are the courses. And then you can see in here, it's, my 4M was Morris, my 4C was Chop, and I forget who the S was. I forget what her name is. But those teachers are available for these courses. Okay. So notice I added my technology, and technology is not in the course group, but I want to make sure that the technology is added so that when I'm scheduling Morris's homeroom, that they all get scheduled into the technology class. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to type in my course code for tech, and it's going to pop up. And then I'm going to say add course. Now, because of demonstration today, I did not create course sections for the other two fourth grade teachers. So you can see that only 4M is in that membership. So they're the only one that has one assigned to them. So as soon as I added the course up at the top, in my section down below, it now added my 4 tech, and it's saying, what course section do you want to add for this course group called Morris? So in this case, again, this is why we suggest naming even the specials with the same section number as your homeroom teacher, because here is section 41. Even though Berman is teaching this, I know that this is Morris's homeroom. Now, you would have all of the other homerooms and they would all say Morris. So section 42, or sorry, Berman. Section 42 would be Berman, section 43 Berman, and so forth. So if you're naming those with the same section number, then I know, okay, well, this is Morris's. So I'm going to click on that, and that will be her homeroom students. So now I'm going to hit save. And then now that new section is saved within that course group. Okay. And then you can see it listed here for Morris. Okay. So that's really setting up a course group. And typically most of ours, our course groups, we have a course group set up for each of our homerooms with each of their courses, and then their section numbers. So any questions with that now that our course group is set up? And it's pretty simple. Okay, so all that's set up in the background. Everything's ready. All of our courses are set. Our course sections are created. If you know the new teachers, those have been modified, and any new courses have been added to our course groups. Now it's time to start creating our homerooms and assigning these to our students. Okay, so I am on task number 20. At this point in time, you might not be ready to do these tasks. Okay, so you might want to stop and follow along. You just might want to get to a point but hit cancel. But again, you might not be ready to start scheduling homerooms and such. Okay, so task 20 is bulk assigning students into a homeroom. Okay, so right now I don't have students scheduled into my homerooms yet. I have those homerooms created for Shortman, Morris, and Chop, but I don't have students in there. So I want to start creating these. So this is where if you have a list, so you know who's in what homeroom, so you might not have those quite yet. You might not have those till you get back in August. Okay. So in order to start creating my homerooms, this is using our ad hocs. So if I go under my management, under ad hoc updates, I have homeroom bulk assignments. Okay. You can also type in homeroom bulk. But there's going to be multiple things that'll pop up. So just be aware of that. So I'm going to go to homeroom bulk assignments. So our course term, we only have a full year homeroom term. Sorry, not course term, homeroom term. We only have the full year. And then it's going to say, okay, well, what homeroom do you want to start creating? So I want to start creating for Morris. Okay. So once I have that, typically we're enforced by grade level. You can uncheck that if it's going to be a mixed class. But typically a teacher is assigned to a grade level. I am going to leave this at my search criteria. Now, if you did print out the homeroom, what's it called? The homeroom assignment procedural checklist. This goes through each of these a little bit more in depth, but typically we're not creating our homerooms by student IDs or creating our homerooms for other homerooms because we don't have multiple homeroom terms. We just have the one. So if you want to get more in depth with that, you could print that out and go through these, but we're just going to go through what's important to us and going by our homerooms and or assigning things by our grade levels. So I'm going to leave this as my search criteria. And then I'm going to come down here because I'm looking at my 4th grade students. So I'm not going to go student by student. I'm not going to do that one at a time. I'm just going to say, hey, I want all my 4th grade students. And then if you do want to narrow it down a little bit more, you can say my active and non-residents if you want to. Okay. Now here is sort students alphabetically. Okay, for us, this is very common to leave it alphabetical because you have you know, you might have it handwritten and you're gonna pick the kids. So they're gonna be in this list. If I choose by student number, then that has to be written down, or a random, then they're just all random. This is commonly used in middle school, high school, because they're randomly assigned to a homeroom, where at the elementary level, we're typically picking who belongs in what group. And then this one is nice, this select students by default. If you do choose that, it will select up to the capacity of your homeroom. So really in this case, I don't necessarily want that because I want to pick and choose those kids. Now later when we do our lunch assignments, you'll see where I'll use that and it'll select those kids. Okay. So again, my fourth grade, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to say preview students, and it's going to show all of my fourth grade students. It is telling me I have a capacity of 25 and I have 25 to go. These are all in alphabetical order. And you can see I had a few students ahead of time so that you can see them scheduled. They were assigned to other homerooms. Okay. But I'm going to start doing my Morris homeroom. So I'm going to get these kids in here. And again, you guys would have your list. Okay. Just going to keep those and say assigned. So it says that they were successfully assigned. Okay, so I don't see them right now, but if I went back in and said, okay, I want to now assign my pork chop. Okay. So this was one that was already existing. Okay, so if they're not supposed to be in there, I can delete them. It still has my fourth grade. And then when I preview my students, it's going to show all of my Morris and anybody else that has been scheduled. So I can go through here and start scheduling my other students. And you would go through this multiple times for however many homerooms. I'm not going to have you sit here and watch me click a billion people. Okay. So we're just going to get some of these for the student. I'm going to assign. Now, what did that just do? So now if I look, and I'm going to do an advanced search, and I'm going to do an advanced search for just my fourth graders. So if I look at my list of fourth graders, I can now start seeing my homerooms are generated for those students that I picked already. Okay. So those are there. If I go into a student specifically, so maybe Kathy, I had her set for, she's going to 4C and she's supposed to be in 4M. So I can click on Kathy. Okay, so it's going to show homeroom right here, 4C. Then if I go into her profile, it is on the additional tab. And you can see the homeroom was assigned 4C. Now I can say auto assign and it's just going to randomly pick one of my fourth grade homerooms, but I want her specifically in Morris's group. So if I want to change, I can change it here and then saves up at the top. I can hit save. It does not refresh right away. You have to physically refresh. And then now you can see that she's in Morris. Okay. So, and that was without assigning any courses, things like that. So that was just working with it, making sure that I have it set. So with that being said, maybe you messed that one up. Maybe you want to double check all of the other ones. So there is a report on the bottom of page 35. It is called the R201A. So the R201, if I just put in R201, there is the details, which is going to show each homeroom and the names. And then the B is just the summary. It's just going to show the totals. So I want the A. this homeroom date has to be within the 25-26 school year. So even when I was watching the training from Progress Book, they forgot to change this. So it's very common to forget this time of year that this has to be in the next school year. So I looked at my master's calendar to make sure I have a date within. So after the start of school, which is the 26th, so I can say August 27th. I'm looking at my active students. If I want all of my grade levels or a specific grade level. Right now, I just want to look at 4th grade. And I might want my active and non-residents. Okay. And then printable columns. So you can pick whatever printable columns you want. So student number, name, birthday, grade. If you had lockers, most of at the elementary don't have lockers, things like that. So then once I print this, you refresh real quick. So now it's going to show me for homeroom C, which the teacher is Pork Chop. Here are their students, the student number, the student name, their birth date, grade level, and so forth. So those were those things that you picked to display. That is what's showing here, but it's showing me a total of 12 kids, 7 male, 5 female. And then Morris should have a group of them. And then Shortman only has a few. Okay, so that's the R201A is going to show you those lists. Whereas if I do the R201B, this is just going to show you the summary, but this is also good to make sure that you're evening out your homerooms to make sure they have even number of students. So if I look at this, should be quick. Maybe not. There we go. So what did I do? Active non-residents. Oh, I forgot to pick my 4th grade. What am I doing wrong? It should have the teacher's name and then how many students are in it. So it would just give you the mass total. So I think I had 12, 16, and 13. So it's a way to be able to see each of them, you know, to make sure that you're filling up. You don't want one homeroom that has 25 and then another homeroom that has 8. Oh, the 24th. Yeah. Thank you. I was picking the August, but I just didn't have the right school year. So let's try that again for the 3rd time. There we go. So here's Pork Chop, what their homeroom is, and then how many total students. So again, so you can see to make sure you're evening out each of your homerooms. Okay. Okay. So another report that you might want to look at while you're looking at this, we are looking at task number 21. And this is bulk assigning course groups using our homerooms. Okay. So if we look, let me go back to my management. Oh, did I not run this earlier? So if we look at the R407, so this is looking at, and I don't want to grow, I'm going to look at 4th grade only because I'm just working with 4th grade. Okay. So I got to pick my default schedule and my result set. So when you are looking at this, if I just print it as is, I thought I printed this earlier, but I guess I did not. This is kind of showing you your master schedule. Hold on. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I just keep messing these up. So this is going to show you all your course sections, your course groups. Oh, because I haven't assigned anything yet. That's why. I haven't assigned anything yet. So when you run it through the first time, it's going to show anything individually that's assigned to the students. If we're assigning by course groups, you can also run this by course groups to see just those course groups. So you know, okay, Morris is teaching this, this, and this. This is in that course group. And then these are the students that are assigned to it. So there's two different ways. We'll run it, we'll assign, we'll run it one way, and then we'll look at it the second way. Okay, so in order to bulk assign the course group with that homeroom, so I just created the homerooms. So we have those set. So I am going to, you can go into, you can type in bulk assign. Several are going to pop up, or I'm going to go into scheduling and bulk assign. And again, you might not be ready to do this. You're probably not ready to do this. So when I do this, okay, so making sure that I have my default schedule, my result set. So how do I want to search for students? So instead of going to my IDs or my ad hoc groups, I'm going to search for students by homeroom. So I'm going to say search and my homerooms pop up, and then I can say, okay, I want to look at Morris. Okay. So I am going to say create a new list. And then here are all my students in Morris. Okay, so it lists them all there. If there's one that I do not want in this class, I'm like, oh, you know what? Lee King is not supposed to be in this class. I need to go switch his homeroom. I can delete him out of there, but still continue with my bulk assigning. Okay. So I have my teacher. I'm going to go to my next tab, which is my second tab. What do I want to assign to them? So you're either going to put in the group code or the course. So we're here. I'm going to put in my group of 4M. That's why you keep them simple. So 4M is my Morris group. And then I'm going to put in my section. Do you guys remember what section Morris was? That's why these little dots are here. The ellipse, she was 41, but you can click on that and it's going to show what course section that she was. So then I can just click on the section number here. I have it written down, so I was cheating. Okay, so now it's saying I'm going to add the 4M section 41, and I want to assign it to these students. So I'm going to click on, I'm going to add the section. Okay, so now once I hit add section, you can see all of these it's going to apply to all of these. Okay, don't forget to click the green button. That's why it's green. Go. And then I'm going to click on next. And then it says, okay, are you ready? There are 13 students that are going to get 12 different sections. And if I'm ready, I'm going to hit starting on August 26, 2025, which is my first day of school. It automatically defaults to the first day of school. If it is prior to the start of school, if it is after the first day of school, it will default to that day. I am going to click on assign. Assignments were saved successfully. Okay. So it went to all of those kids, all 13 in there. So if you are assigning this way, it is very easy to bulk assign to all of the students. It is not very easy to bulk delete all the assignments from the student. You would then have to do it one student at a time. So that's why I said, please make sure you are ready to do this section before you start clicking on stuff. The other thing that you might see on page 37, you might see some conflicts because remember, a lot of our courses in our course, the course section periods are all ones. You might see some conflicts and might have to override them. You're like, oh, is this okay? You check that student and say, yes, it's okay. And it would resolve those conflicts. So that is what M through R talks about. Okay. So now I have those assigned. Now I want to double check my students. Okay. So remember earlier we looked and we saw that those homerooms were assigned to them. So I'm going to go into Rosebud. So look at her profile. We know that she's in Morris's homeroom. But now if I go to edit the full schedule, she now has course assignments. Okay, so what was there, 12 different things in there? So everything has been assigned to her. Now, it sounds like a lot because you're like 12. Well, that's all their specials. That's their admin class. It might be, you know, if you have the learning skills, things like that. But notice one thing that I do not have for this student is a lunch. You still need to schedule a lunch because of House Bill 410. You want to make sure that they're not being docked that time if they are absent for that day. Okay. So if you do accidentally assign something to a student, a group of students, and you're like, oh, they're not supposed to have, I put the wrong course section or group section, whatever it might be, then you have to come into each student and drop all assignments individually. So I said, make sure you're ready to do that task 21 to bulk assign, because it's not as easy to delete. So that's that. So we're making sure everything is here. So then task 23, I almost just skipped one. Task 23 is adding an individual assignment for a student. Okay. So if you're adding an individual assignment for a student, you can come in and do it individually. So for example, maybe I want to add lunch to all my students. So all fourth grade eat together at the same time because it's not assigned. So I don't want to sit there and make section 41, lunch 42, lunch 43. I don't have to do that because I can bulk assign to a group. So I'm going to go back to my scheduling and go back to my bulk assign. Okay. And then I'm going to search for my students. But instead of sorting by homeroom this time, like I did for the bulk assigning of all of the classes, I am going to assign by grade level. So now if I come in by grade level, I'm going to say create a new list. And then here are all my fourth graders. I'm sure you're going to have more than me, but all of my fourth graders are in here. Now, by some chance, if your third grade and fourth grade eat together, you can change this to third grade and then say add to list, and it'll combine those two together. Okay. But right now I'm just going to do mine as fourth grade. I'm going to click on next to go to pick my course section. So I'm going to pick my lunch. And then if I look at my sections, okay, and everybody does their lunches a little bit differently. All of mine in my example, third, fourth, and fifth, they all eat separately. So I did section 3, period 3 for my third grade, section 4, period 4 for my fourth grade, fifth, and so forth. Because those lunch times are the only ones that should have times in your periods of the day to make sure. So if it's a half hour, if the student's absent, they're not being docked for that amount of time. So this is my fourth graders. So I'm going to go to section 4. I'm going to add that. I'm gonna click on next to assign it to my students. And it's going to 58 students, just one course. Now I hit assign. So now this one is definitely conflicting. So it is showing that these kids are assigned to spelling during that same period. So it's spelling section 41. If that's okay, I'm just gonna check. And then I'm gonna say okay. So now they have spelling fourth period and they have lunch fourth period. So at this age level, it doesn't matter. At the older grade levels, it does matter because they do rotate every period. Okay. So that's adding a big group. Task number 24. So this is just adding an individual course assignment to a student. So I'm going to go back to Rosebud. Edit her full schedule. So you should now see lunch in here. Okay, I know it's not part of that course group because there's no group name or group section. But Rosebud does not take fourth grade math. Rosebud takes fifth grade math. Okay, so I want to remove fourth grade and then I'm going to add in fifth grade. Okay, so in order to remove, very simple, just never mind, I'll add first. Sorry, I need to stay in order. If I need to add a course, I'm just going to say add course assignment. So then I'm going to look for my fifth grade math. And then you are required to pick a section. So I only have one section of it. So I'm going to pick that section of it, and then it will default to the start date for the start of school. Okay, so she's going to be in here. So I'm going to hit save. It's going to tell me that it's conflicting. Okay, because it's probably a period one and there's a majority of things period one. So as long as it's okay that it's conflicting, I'm going to say okay. I'm going to look at it and say, okay, yep, it's conflicting because here are all the other ones. But notice that it's in peach, whatever color that is. It's telling me that it's not completely saved yet. Even though I saved it on that screen before, I have to look at it and decide if I do want it. So I selected the section. I said, okay, accept the conflict. And now I'm looking at it and I do want it. So now I have to hit save and it will save it and it's no longer peach. Okay. So that's if you need to add. So now, and if you guys want to make a note, because there's a huge section that I'm skipping in task 24, starting at step number 4, it talks about creating student requests. At the elementary, we typically don't do requests. We're just assigning. At the middle school, high school, they have to have a request first, and then you like the batch scheduler assigns and so forth because the different periods. So 4 on, so page 42, step number 4, all the way through 43, you can just cross off. So task 45, I was trying to do this out of order. Okay, task 45 is removing this class. Okay, so, and this was, Katie, this was some of your question earlier, but so because our schedules have not been finalized, we're working on stuff. It's very easy to delete. So it just completely deletes. So you can see up here, we have assigned, dropped, and removed. Until my schedule is complete, the dropped and removed really don't mean anything, because if I click on this little delete the trash can, it is actually going to delete the record. So prior to the schedule being finalized, it actually deletes it. It's completely gone. You are not going to see it even if you check those boxes up at the top. Okay. So, and then this gives you a little example. So delete, it deletes marks, it deletes comments, report card absences, removes the previously dropped assignments, blah, blah, blah. So removing, this is once the schedules are finalized, so the student is no longer in that class. Okay, so, but once they are removed, they don't see it on their schedule, but in the teacher's grade book, they will see a red W next to that student's name as being withdrawn. Okay, so that's what the remove versus the deletes. So the delete, it's going to completely wipe them out because the schedules haven't been finalized. Remove is going to remove, but they're still going to stay there in gradebook with that red W that they need to hide. Okay, and then once schedule is finalized, you will get two other options. So once the schedules get finalized, you will see drop. So drop is an option if that student attended that class for a little bit, but they are dropping it. So maybe Rosebud did go to math 5th grade, but it's just too much for her, maybe maturity wise, maybe academic wise, and we're going to put her back into math 4. So once school has started and that student officially attended that class for one day, then we would want to drop them. Okay. Your other option is when, and so this would go in between homerooms. Once school is started and the schedule is finalized, you also have the option to transfer. Bless you. Transferring, what it does is say, okay, I'm going from Morris's homeroom, then I'm going over to Chop's homeroom. So I'm going to transfer from Morris to Chop. Okay, so you don't see those right now because we don't have our schedule finalized. So just make note of those. And there is good documentation on course section assignments in the Learning Center that talks about the difference between remove and delete, drop, and transfer. Yes, sir.
This might be a dumb question, but so beginning before everything's finalized, I give, like, so like the homerooms, like, oh, she puts them in and I move one to another. Does she want to delete, like, whatever?
She will only,
deletes that one. Does it delete the whole course or just that for the kid?
just this for the kid.
Okay, so she could use it before she finalizes and then goes back in and individually assigns.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So I'm going to save this because I'm just deleting. I am just, so it's saying right here. It is.
So we're saying, like, if you just remove them, that's when they're gonna have the W's and they can get.
You're right, but the only option you have until the schedule is finalized is to delete it.
Is to delete.
Is,
Okay,
yep.
all right.
So that's why typically at the elementary level, you guys wait until like 2 or 3 days before school starts to finalize your schedule.
Yep.
Because you guys are constantly adjusting.
Yep.
So, and then in this case, it is just removing math 4. So I'm going to hit save. So then now we can see 5th grade math has been added and 4th grade math is going to be deleted. Okay, now it's gone. I resave. Yes.
Okay, like during the school year, the teachers say, you know, I want him moved from low class to average. So I just always delete them, but they never came to me and say they lost grades or anything. Like, that's what I was always worried. But I've never had a teacher come and say, hey, I don't see his grades anymore, because I've always just deleted it. But I've never had it.
And then added the new one.
Then just change them to a different group, like the.
Grade
And
like
they really have assignments in there that matter yet. Like you're saying,
Yeah.
Anytime. I've always just.
so I'm just going by, so let me pull this up in the Learning Center.
as you're live and on
Okay, so let's look here. So I don't know if everybody online heard the exact question, but so from what I understand, and this is just, I'm going by the documentation, I can always get clarification, but the delete, remove is typically used if the student never attended. So here, so removing. So again, before it's finalized, it's delete. After it's finalized, it's called remove. But I was told, so this is removing it is the student did not attend that class or should not have attended that class. Then if we look at the drop, the drop means that the student has attended that class. So you're just going to put in, you know, you're going to mark it drop and then the stop date. So if they, you know, they're leaving that class on Friday, you know, you're going to put Friday's date and then Monday they would start the new class. Again, I'm going by the documentation. I don't know why it might not affect the elementary like it does the high school. So I will get clarification on that of if it's going to cause any problems in the long run.
Oh, okay.
So that was your question too. So I will find out for sure, but again, I'm just going by what they say and what they tell me. I just do what I'm told.
Well, if you put in the stop date, then you can't print out their new schedule. That's the issue we have, because we want to print out their new schedule and give it to them before that, the actual day. But if you do that drop and you put when it's to stop the class, then you can't print out their new schedule for them and give it to them. You wouldn't be able to do that till the day of. You know, like I change it, I hit, you know, delete, remove, whatever. And I want to give them their new schedule. But if you do the drop and you put the stop date, it won't show their
New courses.
Yeah, it won't show their new schedule. You're switching, you know.
Okay, I'm going to look into this
Okay.
more.
Yeah.
How frequently do you have that happen?
I'm sure a lot.
A lot.
Because you're talking about levels.
Yes, levels. Like low, average, high.
And when you're saying printing their schedules, are you printing the 701, the schedule card?
Yeah, just a new schedule to show them what their new schedule is going to be like.
So you're saying the drop doesn't allow the new schedule? Their new-
Until the day, till it meets that day.
Okay. Okay, I will look in and I will get clarification. And again, for this, in the Learning Center, if you want to go through it, I just typed in course section assignments and it is all the way down towards the bottom. It has everything in there. We don't get extra privileges of different documentation. We just get theirs. Okay, so that was 25 adding. So something that I also want to show, or am I doing that later on? I'm doing that later on. Okay. Bulk removing, task number 26, bulk removing course section assignments. So occasionally you might need to do this. So for example, maybe you scheduled all of the fourth graders with a third grade lunch and you need to bulk remove something. So I'm going to go into my scheduling and then instead of bulk assigning, I'm going to go to the bulk section management. So you'll have to pick your working schedule if needed. And then I'm going to say, okay, I need to remove lunch. I did the wrong one. So I did the fourth, and I know it was the correct one, but just in case. So once I click on view, it's gonna show me every student that is in that section. And I'm like, okay, you know what, these students shouldn't have been in there. Okay, so this is opposite of what you think. Let me make sure I'm saying this right. If you want the students still in that course, so they're supposed to be in this section, then you need to delete them. I know it's opposite. So if they are not supposed to be in this course, you leave them in this list. Okay. So for example, I want Rosebud to stay in fourth period lunch. I'm going to delete her off of here. I want Kathy to be in fourth period lunch. I'm going to delete her. Everybody else is being removed from fourth period. Okay. So then I'm going to click on next to go to choose action. And again, right now, because we don't have our schedule finalized, the only option we have to do is to delete. So I'm going to click on next, view any conflicts. Okay. And then I'm going to hit submit. And then it's going to remove lunch from all of those students. Okay. And again, you can only do this by a course and course section. Okay. So it's a little different. If you're assigning that whole group, you're not removing a whole group. You would have to delete all assignments. Okay, so that's one way to fix a mistake if you have it. So another is, so task 27 is kind of what we're talking about, is moving students mid-year. So if they're moving to another homeroom, things like that. So it's kind of a two-step process once school has started. Okay, so I'm going to look here at Kathy first. She is assigned in Morris's homeroom. Okay, so if I look at her full schedule, I'm going to look at her full schedule. Not only is she assigned to Morris's homeroom, but I've also assigned her the group, the course group with all of Morris's classes. So 27 kind of breaks it down into two areas. So steps 1 and 2 is changing the homeroom. And then 3 and on is actually changing the course assignments. So the first thing we're going to do is edit the student's homeroom. So we already looked at that earlier. So in the student's profile, on the additional tab, I can change. So I'm going to change from Morris to Shortman. So she's going, we'll go to Chop. Okay, so go Morris to Chop. I'm going to hit save. Refresh my screen. So you can see up at the top, I now have changed my homeroom. Okay, so that one, that's good. So part 1 is done. However, if I'm still looking at Kathy's full schedule, she is still assigned to all of Morris's group. So the next thing that I need to do is remove all of her classes for Morris and add all of Chop's. Except I don't have all of Chop's assigned, but that's okay. So first thing I am going to do is click on drop all assignments. Okay, so when I click on drop all assignments, it's dropping everything, including that lunch. Okay, so you got to remember, if you're dropping and you physically change something, remember Rosebud went into 5th grade math, I would manually have to do that again if I hit the drop assignments, drop all. Okay, because notice I'm just getting one option to drop it all, and I don't get a checkbox. So once I hit save, all my assignments are going to be dropped. Okay, and then again, they're in Peach. I have to hit save again to confirm. So now the only thing that this student has is the homeroom. They no longer have any course assignments. So now I need to manually change from Morris's group to Chop's group. So I'm not doing a bulk assign because I'm not doing the whole homeroom. I'm just doing this one student. So I'm going to add the course assignment here. So now what is the course or the section? Now I'm going to go by the course group. So I want 4C. Okay, so there's my group. And I don't think I do. Oh, 43. So now I'm going to section 43. I thought I forgot to do that. Okay, and then once I hit save, it's going to say, okay, now I'm going to add all of these. But notice my lunch isn't in here, so I'm going to hit save. It did the entire course group, and then I can come back in and add my lunch. And they are going into lunch for 4th grade and hit save. It's okay that it's conflicting, showing that it's conflicting with spelling, and I'm going to hit save. Now they're scheduled. Okay. So now 2 other reports. So we looked at, was it the 407 earlier? So if we look at the 407 again,
Ellie,
yes,
so if you have like for us, if they have a homeroom, but they don't always travel in homerooms, then you can't do that, you have to go individual. You see, you know, does that make sense, like,
yes, because so like, I'm just using Brandenburg because so does Brandenburg's homeroom go to Set's room for math? Or do the kids kind of go everywhere?
they would go to the same math teacher, but it may not be, I guess it could be like math in the morning, some of them might go to core 1, and that might be their math, then the other half are gonna go to math in the afternoon, but it's the same teacher.
But the groups would be different.
But the groups
The groups would be different.
Like the individual.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So you would have, because you would have multiple sections of that math class. So maybe, you know, your morning math.
Like at least 2 sections of that math.
Yeah.
Like Brandenburg Math 1, Brandenburg Math 2.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming
Yeah, you
that
wouldn't be
you
able
wouldn't
to
be
do
able-
a
yeah.
group. But what you could do with the group is if Brandenburg's homeroom is traveling, they all go to phys ed at the same time. They all go
Yeah,
to
so
art
we
at
could
the
do
same,
that. So
you
we
can,
could-
yes,
we could individually do that, but then like the cores, we would have to, okay.
yes. Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, let me look if, well, no, because you have to pick and choose. So there's no way to bulk if you're
Yeah.
picking and choosing.
I figured that's what it was.
Yeah. Okay, so we already looked once at our 407. But now that we have assignments, let me put our 407. Okay, so I'm looking at my 4th grade. Now I want to look at my course groups. So if I check that and click submit,
Fine, let me see your.
yeah, I'm missing something. Is it because I'm picking my 4th grade?
Because I did not pick anything.
Is it your date up at the top?
This one is not, this one's not affected by the dates.
If I look my total blank in it.
Huh. Well, let's try it.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I don't want to print.
That's fine.
Did I rerun it correctly? I don't remember.
Yeah, every something over, it's unreal. With the amount.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't, yeah. I don't know why that's not working, so. But what, so that one is supposed to, I have a printout of it. It would show Morris and it would show, you know, her groups.
They called it. I did that first. We did that.
Okay, let's try that.
Go back and pick the grade. But yeah, I had one variable. See, when it actually has pages, it takes longer to run. Oh no, shoot. Oh, Shelley.
I don't know. It's something with me. It's just me. Our other one, I don't know if this will work either, but the 703. So the R703. This is not in the documentation. This is just make a note of it. So the R703 is your class lists. So if you want to print these out for your teachers, so they have it, I do suggest using format 10. So format 10 does have some demographic information, like phone numbers, things like that. Students. Okay, and then you can also put a comment. Okay, and remember, you're printing these out for the teacher, so this is not necessarily for the students. I don't remember if this one is specific to the school year, but we'll make sure it's within that. And then I want my admin class. Well, we'll leave it. We'll print them all out. So if I click on submit, there we go. Yay, something. So student name, address, phone number, some contact, birth date, and then what homeroom they're in. So this is who the teacher is, what the course is, and then all of the students in there. If I go to my next one, here's my teacher for music, who the students are, who their homeroom is, and so forth. So that the 703, the format 10 does give a little bit more of the demographic information, where the other ones are more school year specific, with if you're submitting grades and things like that. But then here is my little disclaimer too. You put a little note or welcome to the school year, whatever it might be. But that could be adjusted as you print. But again, 703 is not in here, so you just might want to jot that down. So just refreshing, tasks 1 through 19, you could have done and followed along with me today. Tasks 20 on through 27, when you are ready for the actual scheduling, is what you will do to get everything complete. Your homerooms, and then assigning those course groups if you're using those course groups, and then how to modify a little bit. Yes, sir.
My last question would be, for now, if you get a kid that moves in mid-year, you're not even, it's still 24 hours before they're loaded into the system, or can you do it before they're like active, like start assigning? How does that?
You can start assigning before, but so you cannot assign it before their enrollment dates.
But
So-
you can get everything
Yes,
ready.
yes.
And
If
then-
they are in the system, you can start. So like if they're enrolling,
So I guess that's what I'm saying, once they're in the system, so if we have final forms, then it usually takes, we upload, it's usually a day before they're in that. In
yes,
DASL and everything.
yes. What's there in DASL, even, so if they come in today and they're saying they're not starting till next Monday.
Yeah.
You can start doing the schedule, but the start date would be next Monday.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any questions from anyone in the chat or on Zoom?